This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Mali's junta leader and new interim president, Colonel Assimi Goïta, is in Ghana for a meeting with West African leaders. The DRC grapples with a humanitarian crisis as those displaced by a volcanic eruption return to Goma. And a new COVID-19 variant discovered in Vietnam that spreads rapidly through the air. Hello and a very warm welcome to Africa Live on CGTN. I'm Lindy Mtongana in Nairobi. Also coming up this hour. The robotic cargo ship Tianzhou 2 docks successfully on Tianhe, the core module of the China space station. And it's an all-North African final as Tunisia's Union Sportive Monastir takes on Egypt's Zamalek. In your top story this hour, Mali's junta leader and new interim president, Colonel Assimi Goïta, is in Ghana for a meeting with West African leaders. Now, they'll discuss a response to Mali's second coup in just 9 months. Goïta was invited for what's been termed as consultations before the Economic Community of West African States meets for a summit devoted to Mali. Goïta served as vice president from August last year. Mali's constitutional court named him transitional president on Friday. The 15-nation bloc has threatened to reimpose sanctions on Mali. France has also warned it will pull its troops out of the country if it lurches towards radical Islamism. Well, let's delve a little deeper now into these latest developments. We're joined by our correspondent, Nabil Ahmed Rufai, live from Accra, Ghana. And we also have Fahiraman Rodriguez Kone from the Sahel team of the Institute for Security Studies. He's joining us live via Zoom from Bamako in Mali. But let's start in Accra, Nabil, with you, of course, that meeting set to take place today. What is the latest from Accra, and what are we expecting to come out of these talks with ECOWAS?
Well, Lindy, the ECOWAS leaders have started arriving here in Ghana for the extraordinary summit to discuss the future of Mali. And here at the venue where the summit is expected to be held, preparation is ongoing. In there, the conference room where the discussions will be held is being prepared. Now we know that the junta, Colonel Assimi Goïta, has already arrived here in Ghana. In fact, he left Bamako on Saturday, and he will be part of this deliberation, which will be mediated by the former Nigerian president, Goodluck Jonathan, who's been steering the affairs of the political situation in Mali since the first coup. Now, what the leaders will be expecting to do is to also convince the junta to hand over back to civilian government to oversee the transition. We know during the first coup, that was what they tried to achieve, and were able to do so after a back and forth with the leader. And this is exactly what they'll be hoping to achieve at this particular summit. And if that fails, we're already learning that they will reimpose sanctions on Mali. We know that Mali was expected to hold elections early January, a democratic election early next year. But then as to whether this would really happen, it's something that these leaders will also be discussing at the summit based on the second coup that has already happened, Lindy.
And of course, as we know, one possible response from ECOWAS could be sanctions imposed on Mali. Nabil, how would these proposed sanctions impact the country and the interim leaders?
Lindy, you know that the sanctions are likely to take in the form of economic sanction, and that was what happened in the first situation when the coup was done. The ECOWAS regions or the ECOWAS bloc actually shut their borders to Mali, and this prevented inflows of financial inflows and also trading across borders into Mali. So this is likely to impact the economy of Mali if the sanctions are reimposed. And we know with the insurgency already taking place in some parts of Mali by these jihadist groups, it's also likely to escalate, and that will really have a dire impact on the citizens of Mali. So these are the two key things that are likely to affect the citizens of Mali when these sanctions are reimposed. One, economic, crippling the economy, and also the insecurity is likely to escalate. Lindy.
Thank you so much. That's Nabal Afra-Rakaya joining us there live from Accra. Let's now go to Fahiraman Rodriguez Kone. He's live with us in Bamako. Fahiraman, events have been moving rather quickly in Mali, and of course a swift response taking place today from the regional bloc ECOWAS. But to what extent do you think ECOWAS can really help shape things to come in Mali?
ECOWAS has a limited possibility of negotiation in this current situation because the regional body cannot come back to the previous order. The Malian Constitutional Court on Friday, I think, gave a legal foundation to the head of the junta by proclaiming him as the head of the state. And also the junta tried to have a political agreement with internal political and social forces, as well that seems to give him a kind of legitimacy. ECOWAS has to be pragmatic and realistic. A first option could worsen the economic situation in the country, which is already facing to a severe security crisis. And if this could give those sanctions, we could go in a kind of larger supporter to the junta among the population, because this could be seen as an injustice after the case of Chad, where the international community were more flexible.
Now, of course, this is the second military takeover in less than a year, but the new interim leader is talking about appointing a prime minister from the M5 RFP coalition. How might this arrangement change the political matrix in the transition process?
Apparently, there is a reconfiguration of internal political game with the comeback of M5 coalition, which was 1 year ago one of the major contestants of the previous regime and the falling of this regime too. I think this gives a chance of a broad consensus to the political situation, but at the same time, there are some political parties which strongly condemn the coup. And there is still negotiation and reconfiguration of the political arena. But at the same time, we can recognize that the military regime is still at the middle of the political game. They are the major actors, and there is not really a big change as we are seeing.
Well, thank you so much for that analysis. Fahiraman Rodriguez Kone joining us live via Zoom from Bamako. Let's turn over now to Nigeria, where local authorities have confirmed that 14 students kidnapped from a university in the northwest of the country have now been freed. The students were kidnapped 40 days ago from Greenfield University in Kaduna State. A police spokesperson said the students were dumped outside the city along the Kaduna-Abuja Expressway on Saturday evening. On April 20th, gunmen stormed the university and kidnapped around 20 students. A number of university staff were killed in the process. 5 students were executed a few days later to force families and the government to pay a ransom. It's not clear whether a ransom was paid for the release of these remaining students. The Greenfield kidnapping marks the 5th such attack in just 5 months. Since December, 730 children and students have been kidnapped in Nigeria. Well, staying in the country, mourners in Nigeria have been attending the funeral of victims from a boat accident. Authorities on Wednesday recovered the bodies of at least 76 people after an overloaded boat capsized in the northwestern state of Kebbi. That's according to a press release published on the state government's website. The wooden boat was ferrying between 100 and 200 people, according to wide-ranging estimates from Nigerian authorities and locals. The state government said it would review maritime laws to prevent what it called recurring cases of boat mishaps. 22 people were rescued, and a survivor describes how she tried to save her friends.
When I saw that my other friends would die, I threw my veil to them to help them hold on to me or swim out. I told them to hang on, but unfortunately I lost my friends. They were saying, "Mariam, don't let us die. Mariam, don't let us die." Someone called Hassan threw another hook to me, but I did not know what to do because I was carrying someone on my back. I continued swimming and shouting while looking for rescue.
Let's go to the Democratic Republic of Congo now. The government says it mistakenly announced the eruption of a second volcano. Officials previously said that Morara volcano had a low-intensity eruption on Saturday morning, causing lava to flow into an uninhabited area of Virunga Park, a wildlife reserve. The scare comes a week after Mount Nyiragongo roared back into life, sparking a mass exodus. The Goma Volcano Observatory said in its latest report that 61 earthquakes had shaken the area in just 24 hours. Most Goma residents have headed for the nearby town of Sake, where tens of thousands are now gathered. Others have headed to the Rwandan border in the northeast, while others have also decided to flee by boat across Lake Kivu. Rwandan President Paul Kagame says those fleeing are in need of urgent global support. Well, let's bring you more on this now. Let's go live to the DRC, to our correspondent, Chris Ochambringa, joining us from Kinshasa. It seems that there is reoccurring seismic activity, while at the same time people are still reeling from the after effects of that Nyiragongo eruption a week ago. Chris, tell us more about the humanitarian crisis that is unfolding now in that region.
Well, Lindy, thousands of people have fled Goma city to different parts of the neighboring areas that are considered safe. Like you mentioned, some have gone to Rwanda, others Bukavu, and most of them have settled in Sake, a town that's about 25 kilometers west of Goma. And the people there are cramped in areas where, you know, there's very little water, food and shelter. And some of them have been returning to Goma because the conditions there have been very difficult for them. The government has been criticized by quite a number of people for the slow response in providing humanitarian assistance to thousands of people. Humanitarian agencies estimate that there are 400,000 people who were forced to flee to neighboring areas after a warning about another volcanic eruption. And like you mentioned, Lindy, the Minister of Communication on Saturday announced that there was another eruption of a different mountain called Mount Nyamuratira in Virunga National Park, but it turned out to be a false alarm. There were people who were burning trees for making charcoal, and so the smoke that came out from this tree gave the experts from the Goma Volcano Observatory that there was another eruption. Officials from the UN peacekeeping mission flew their planes over that mountain and said there was no activity, so it turned out to be a false alarm. Lindy?
Thank you so much. Joining us there live, Chris Ochambringa in Kinshasa. Now, Israeli Foreign Minister Gabi Ashkenazi is due to meet with his Egyptian counterpart, Sameh Shoukry, in Cairo today. Details of the meeting are still scant, but the two are expected to focus on the Palestinian-Israeli ceasefire. Egypt is working with the United States and regional partners towards reinforcing that ceasefire that it brokered between Israel and Palestinian militants. The ceasefire was facilitated in part by Egypt's long-standing relations with both sides. Meanwhile, the Egyptian General Intelligence Chief will be visiting Gaza to personally follow up on Egypt's security efforts to maintain a truce. Now, for more on this now, we're joined by CGTN's Adel Al-Mahri, who is following these developments. Adel, the visit by the Israeli Foreign Minister is being seen as very significant at this time. What more can you tell us?
Lindy, this is the first meeting, at least officially announced, from an Israeli foreign minister to Cairo in 13 years. This is how rare and significant this visit is. Basically, such meetings rarely happen, and based on a tweet from the Israeli foreign minister, his visit comes as an invitation or in response for an invitation from the Egyptian foreign minister Sameh Shoukry. Now, he's here to be discussing three crucial issues in the Palestinian conflict. First of all is how to solidify the ceasefire that Egypt helped in brokering between the Israelis and Hamas. They're also going to be discussing a plan for exchange of hostages between Israel and Hamas, which is not the first time that Egypt will be brokering also such a hostage exchange agreement. Finally, they will be discussing the reconstruction in Gaza. Israel hopes to have such reconstruction plans under international supervision, as fears among the Israeli administration that the loads of money that are going to be poured to reconstruct Gaza might fall in Hamas's hands, something that Israel fears could threaten its from other attacks in the future. So overall, the meeting comes to maintain and expand the possible of maintaining the ceasefire and introduce more support to Gaza. As you've said, also the meeting comes while the chief of Egyptian intelligence, Bureau Abbas Kamel, is going to visit the Palestinian territories. He's actually in Tel Aviv in plan.
Well, I'm not sure if you're still with us there, Adele. Another concern, as we understand, for Egypt has been to sustain humanitarian assistance to help those affected by the conflict in Gaza. What is the progress on that front? I don't believe Adele is with us anymore. Let's now take a short break. Here's what's still ahead on the program. Coming up, a new COVID-19 variant discovered in Vietnam, and tributes pour in after the remains of 215 children are found at a former residential school. Africa is a continent of diversity, with varied climates and enchanting geography, and a people so distinct, but with a shared enduring spirit. We are at the heart of the continent to bring you the untold stories. Let's have a look. We celebrate Africa as it shapes its own destiny.
I've been Tunis, Cairo, Juba, Johannesburg, Ethiopia, Tanzania.
Africa Live. Find your voice. Vietnam has detected a new COVID-19 strain. It seems to be a hybrid of the variants first identified in Britain and India. Zhou Yang has more.
According to the Vietnam's health ministry, this variant is a mixture of the COVID-19 variants first identified in India and Britain and spread quickly by air. So the two mutated strains are currently the most common variant among the new COVID-19 cases in Vietnam in the ongoing infection wave. But now the authorities haven't provided more details about the number and the infected by the new variant. And at the present, over 161,000 people who had close contact with the COVID-19 patient or even returned from the virus hit area are being monitored at hospitals, quarantine facilities, and at home.
In Canada, the remains of more than 200 children have been found at the site of what was once the country's largest Indigenous residential school. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has described the discovery as heartbreaking.
Flowers and tributes left outside the Kamloops Indian Residential School in British Columbia. The remains of 215 children, some as young as 3 years old, were found at the site. A finding Prime Minister Justin Trudeau described as heartbreaking and a reminder of a dark and shameful chapter of the country's history. The discovery of the mass grave reveals a dark chapter of Indigenous communities across Canada.
The Kamloops was the home residential school since the 1890. And, we all know that many of our consultants and relations came to residential school, not by choice, but were students there. And we also do know that many of the students, have went missing as well. And, our consultants, they can definitely share in those stories and have shared in those stories. And, what I've heard from many of them is the fact that, the ones that they know were missing and never came back were told that they ran away.
The 2015 report documents physical abuse, rape, and other atrocities suffered by many of the 150,000 children who attended the schools, typically run by Christian churches from 1840s to 1990s. In 2008, the Canadian government formally apologized for the system. Chief of the Indigenous communities in the city of Kamloops says more bodies may be found on the school grounds as the Indigenous community mourns the loss of its people.
The Ethiopian government says it is providing necessary humanitarian services in the Tigray region. Authorities say those behind human rights abuses and criminal acts are being brought to justice. Here's more from CGTN's Girum Chala.
Since the law enforcement mission against Tigray's former ruling party, the TPLF, began in the region last November, thousands of people have been killed, some 2 million people have been forced from their homes, and most of the region need aid on a daily basis. Ethiopia's government said it's addressing the humanitarian situation in the region and is providing protection for civilians in Tigray. Authorities here also said security forces are delivering protection for civilians in the region. These assurances come after the United Nations called Friday for added protections for civilian population, after multiple reports surfaced about soldiers taking hundreds of people from displacement camps, some of whom were later released. Tigray activists and TPLF leadership, however, say Ethiopian and Eritrean forces are still involved in deep criminal acts against people in the region. They say famine and humanitarian catastrophes are looming. Last week, the U.S. imposed visa and financial restrictions on Ethiopia over alleged atrocities in Tigray. It's calling on Addis Ababa to rapidly address the crisis in the region. Ethiopia maintains the U.S. still lacks basic information about the situation in Tigray, and its decisions is ruining the long-standing relationship between the two nations. On the other hand, Ethiopian authorities say the provisional Tigray administration is delivering peace, stability, and basic government services to the region. Group Dala CGTN, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
Eastern Libyan commander Khalifa Haftar presided over a military parade in Benghazi on the 7th anniversary of his operation to drive Islamist militants out of the city. The ceremony took place at Benghazi's Benina airport. Haftar and his Libyan National Army still hold influence in the east of the country, nearly a year after the 14-month offensive to seize the capital, Tripoli, collapsed. Libya's government of national unity was sworn into office in March this year. It took over from the two rival administrations in the east and west. Its appointment was accepted by both sides in the civil war and their foreign backers. French President Emmanuel Macron paid a tribute to Nelson Mandela during a visit to Mandela's Foundation in Johannesburg, South Africa on Saturday. Macron was given a tour of the Foundation's exhibition and Mandela's private archival collections. While paying tribute to South Africa's first democratic president, Macron referred to Mandela by his clan name Madiba as a sign of respect. The visit marked the close of Macron's 4-day trip to South Africa and Rwanda.
I wanted to pay tribute to Madiba and a few minutes before leaving the country to first to express my respect, a lot of humility, and indeed to pay tribute to his achievements and what he did for the country, but not just the country, the continent and humanity.
Egypt's Ministry of Health has confirmed it will provide in-home COVID-19 vaccination services for eligible groups. The service targets those who are unable to leave the house. A center has been allocated in each of Egypt's governorates for the service. Yasser Hakim has more.
Ahmed Ismail suffers from muscular dystrophy, which prevents him from moving freely, and he tires quickly. He commends the home service vaccinations introduced by the government.
It's a very good decision and important for those with special needs who cannot go to the centers. The pandemic kills people, and with vaccines, in time, everything will return to normal. The economy and life will be normal.
He is one of the cases allowed to receive the shots at home. His mom has registered for him to be inoculated.
Registration was made simple and easy so that anyone can apply. Even the old people who can't use the internet can register by phone. This service has made it easier for us to take the decision for the jab. We were hesitant because he is unable to go, but now they will come here for vaccination.
The government has established 27 offices countrywide to provide doses for home services. The aim is to facilitate for those who cannot go to the medical centers. But it also helps to speed up the vaccination process. Only 2.5% of Egyptians have been inoculated so far. One of the reasons is the small number of doses that have arrived since the rollout began. Another reason is related to Egyptians themselves. Only 5% of the over 100 million population have registered for the jab.
Some people are worried because of the information on social media and unreliable sources about harmful effects of the vaccines. Vaccines have proved that it can prevent severe symptoms or deaths from the virus. WHO also confirmed that the vaccines are safe, therefore people shouldn't listen to misinformation or rumors that these vaccines are harmful because this slows down the process.
In response, the government has launched an awareness campaign to encourage Egyptians to go ahead.
The Egyptian media has a huge role to play in explaining the importance of vaccines and also to show the research and studies that prove when a large segment of the population is vaccinated, the cases would go down and people can live normally again.
To speed up the process further, the Ministry of Health established medical centers that combined could inoculate up to 110,000 people per day. Yasser Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
To South Africa now, where biological invasions are threatening the country's unique biodiversity and could impact livelihoods and people's health. That's according to a new threat assessment conducted by the Environment Department. The scientific assessment found that one of the key drivers accelerating the decline in biodiversity is the invasion of non-native species. CGTN's Travis Andrews has more with this report.
Biological invasions have become a serious threat to South Africa's unique biodiversity and is responsible for a 25% decline in biodiversity loss. That is according to the new State of Biological Invasions and Their Management report, which was compiled by the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment. The report found that alien species that have established themselves in South Africa have increased by 15%, from 1,637 to 1,888, which is a concern for the country.
They are finding that particularly invasive trees are guzzling up almost 5% of our surface water. Invasive species are also impacting on grazing land, and if not managed properly, we could lose as a country up to 70% of our grazing, and this clearly would have a terrible impact on food security and rural livelihoods.
Invasive species are impacting on both terrestrial and marine ecosystems. Alien species of trees are not only using more water resources, but are burning far harder during vegetation fires, causing widespread damage. Some eradication programs, though, have been put in place to mitigate this.
We as government have a massive program of alien clearing. This program last year created 53,000 work opportunities in rural areas where there aren't other forms of economic activity. We're spending about R1 billion a year. Over the last 15 years, we've spent almost 10 billion doing this work, and many of the areas have been cleared 3 times over.
The marine ecosystem has also been adversely affected by invasive species of plants, animals, and pathogens. Bivalves such as the Pacific oyster and Mediterranean mussel have become an important source of revenue for the fishing sector, but they can compete with native species for food and space.
Have to strike a balance between using them and preventing damaging impacts. So we have to control the ballast water. We have to control the way that marine organisms are used in mariculture, aquaculture.
The Department of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment is in the process of developing a policy on the management of biological invasions, which will include a 10-year action plan. NIE believes through sound policies grounded in science and a financial commitment, the dangers posed by high-risk biological invasions can be greatly reduced in the future. Travis Andrews, CGTN, Cape Town.
The China Civil Engineering Construction Corporation has launched the construction of its industrial park in Ethiopia. The park, located in Diradawa city, will be built on a 1,000-hectare piece of land. Li Minggang, the Deputy General Manager of CCECC Ethiopia, said he's honored to witness the rapid development of Ethiopia's industrialization. The Mayor of Diradawa city, Ahmed Mohamed Boer, has welcomed the project, saying it will create employment opportunities for residents.
As the pioneer industrial park of the Diradawa Special Economic Zone, CCECC, Diradawa Industrial Park is aiming to become a demonstration platform for the cooperation between China and Ethiopia. With the strong support from the governments of China and Ethiopia, it is expected to build an important base for international production capacity cooperation, to become a powerful engine for the industrialization of Ethiopia.
I would like to thank you for coming here and investing your money in Diradawa, as this will help the local community in technology transfer as well as job opportunity for the youngsters, and actually developing Diradawa administration.
There are many Chinese investors in the Ethiopian industrial parks. In addition, it is the Chinese companies that are developing industrial parks. CCECC by itself has constructed many of the industrial parks in Ethiopia. This one is also being constructed by CCECC. Therefore, the Chinese investors and companies have a huge share in Ethiopia's economic development.
Time for a short break. Still ahead on Africa Live. The robotic cargo ship Tianzhou 2 docks successfully on Tianhe, the core module of the China space station. And digital platforms in Uganda are helping farmers boost their earnings.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN.
There's more to this place than just glorious landscapes. There's more to it than just, say, Table Mountain or glorious, endless salt flats. There's more to it than countries that are home to some of the deepest mines in the world. There is so much more to this place, even if it is home to some of the finest diamonds on the planet. It is the sheer diversity of the people who call Southern Africa home, and the relentless drive to make it a better place that make it so special. And we know that because this too is home. No one knows Southern Africa like we do. CGTN, see the difference.
Accra is my kind of city. That's because when I'm here, I feel like I'm back home in Lagos or Abidjan, which are two of the major cities I grew up in.
Business in Africa is
After about a decade covering business news on the continent, I've learned it's all about the high risk, but also the high returns and the high energy. You simply have to adjust in order to keep pace. When I started out as a journalist, my dream was to open people's minds to the different perspectives. From the CEO in the boardroom to the trader out in the street, we all have different stories. From Accra to Addis Ababa, from Cairo to Cape Town, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Here at CGTN, we realize that Africa is on the move, and it's moving fast, but we're moving right along with it. I'm Ucheo Koronkwo, and I'm a business anchor and reporter at CGTN.
China Manned Space Agency has confirmed the successful docking of the robotic cargo ship Tianzhou-2 early this morning with Tianhe, the core module of the China space station. This makes Tianzhou-2 the first visiting spacecraft to the country's space station.
The uncrewed Tianzhou-2 cargo spacecraft successfully completed computer-orchestrated rendezvous and docking maneuvers with Tianhe at 5:01 a.m. Sunday. The whole process from launch to docking took approximately 8 hours. At around 9 p.m. Saturday, it was blast off for a new generation medium-sized Long March 7 Y3 rocket. It carried Tianzhou-2 and 4.69 tons of cargo in a pressurized segment from the Wenchang spacecraft launch site on the southern island province of Hainan. It's the first time that China's space station cargo transportation system was put into use. It was all systems go after China's Manned Space Engineering Office had confirmed that all functions of the Tianhe core module are normal and in good condition.
We have witnessed the implementation of a first autonomous fast rendezvous and docking mission, which is of great significance to our space station mission. We can better realize the transportation of supplies between the space station and Earth and support the construction and operation of our National Space Laboratory. We can also support the working life of our astronauts in orbit.
The Tianzhou-2 is mainly responsible for transporting astronauts' everyday supplies, propellant, platform maintenance equipment, and loading equipment. In concert with Tianhe, Tianzhou-2 will automatically refuel the space station to ensure its long-term and stable operation in orbit. Waste produced during the astronaut's stay will be carried by Tianzhou-2 on its return to Earth, to be destroyed when the spacecraft burns up during re-entry into the atmosphere. Tianzhou-2 is the second of the 11 missions to build China's first self-developed space station. It will remain docked to the station module to support the upcoming crewed Shenzhou 12 mission in June.
Well, earlier we spoke with Amita Bagosh, a space scientist working on NASA's Mars missions. He shared his views on the significance of the docking maneuver.
So it's a very important technical step. Imagine you have two blocks of the space station moving at an altitude at maybe 18,000 miles an hour and 248 or 250 miles from the surface of the Earth. That's how high it is. It's moving such a high velocity, and at that point, docking both modules might sound very simple from Earth, but it is difficult. So I think it's a very important technical step, not that China has not done this before, and not that other like NASA and the International Space Station, they also have to do these steps. But nonetheless, this is a very important step, a very important technical milestone.
Transsion, Techno and Infinix may not be global household names, but in Africa, they are leaders in the smartphone market. That's according to a recent study by global research firm International Data Corporation. Cheap prices and high-end options have made them particularly popular in the capital of the Democratic Republic of Congo, as Chris Ochamuringa reports.
A typical shop window display in Kinshasa. Phone dealers here sell a wide range of Chinese smartphones to the city's 12 million residents. Many of these Chinese brands have become household names.
Right now, phone brands like Tecno are selling more than other brands in Kinshasa, especially their Spark series. The reason they sell so fast is because they have long-lasting batteries and good cameras. You know, we Congolese love good quality products.
According to global research firm International Data Corporation, Chinese phones like Tecno, Infinix, and Itel have become the top-selling smartphones in Africa. Chinese brands accounted for 18% of the total shipments to the continent last year, compared to 15% by South Korean competitor Samsung.
One of the advantages of Tecno phones is its long battery life. They are really good. Some, like the Spark series, can go for days without blacking out. Secondly, it has a great camera. I usually take very nice photos with my phone.
Chinese phone brands have become very popular in the DRC because they are cheaper than other global brands and have features similar to those found in high-end phones. A mid-range Chinese phone goes for about $100, a fraction of the costs of even a used iPhone, which can cost $500. It's a huge difference for a country where the majority of citizens live on less than $2 a day.
La Chine est extrêmement avancée sur le plan technologique.
China is very advanced in technology. Some of its popular brands like Huawei are competing with the best smartphones in the world. Chinese manufacturers realized that they had to make good phones that are affordable to ordinary people in order to capture the wide market in Africa.
Au niveau des aspects technologiques, comme j'ai dit au départ,
not only are the phones sold in Africa, but important raw materials are mined here as well, like cobalt, a key component in rechargeable batteries. The DRC is home to more than half of the world's cobalt, much of it sourced from the Katanga region in the south. But the country doesn't have any phone manufacturing companies due to decades of political instability and conflict. And so Congolese citizens have to rely on industrialized countries like China to produce its smartphones and other electronic devices. Chris Ochamringa, CGTN, Kinshasa, Democratic Republic of Congo.
Ugandan farmers are increasingly using online sites to market their products and access agricultural extension services. CGTN's Hilary Ayesiga reports that these platforms have enabled farmers to reach customers, boost production and also increase sales.
Thomas Musoke is a farmer in central Uganda. He grows a variety of crops such as butternuts and maize. He used to sell his produce to middlemen at a low price. But in 2018, he switched to a mobile platform called Omlimisa. The platform helps farmers inquire about market prices by simply texting a message on their smartphone.
You don't have airtime, you just send the SMS and they will reply instantly.
Musoke says he has so far sold butternuts worth $150 compared to market prices, which could fetch him less than $100. The platform also offers a range of other services such as agriculture insurance, loans, and free extension services. Using the Omlimisa digital platform, Musoke can now access agriculture information on how to keep his crops healthy. He says the service has already helped him fight off pests and diseases.
When they were about 1.5 months, they started rotting. Then I wondered why, because I had put there fruit fly traps, but they were rotting. Then I contacted the platform. They replied.
The Omlimisa digital platform was started 2 years ago and now has over 7,000 subscribers.
We first of all provide market information in terms of the prices. For example, how much is a kilo of maize in Kisenyi, in Owino, in Kalere. We provide that information free of charge.
The app has been a game changer for those with smartphones, but there are still limitations of internet connectivity.
We are only talking about 2.5 million people using social media, having access. So the infrastructure is still so limited to actually grow the opportunities that come with the technology.
Food rights campaigners are now urging the local government to invest heavily in the digital infrastructure. The government has begun rolling out the internet infrastructure across the country and also provides free wireless internet in some areas. Hopefully, this intervention could help farmers like Musoke boost their production and sales. Hilary Ayesiga, CGTN, Mukono, Central Uganda.
Time for a short break. Your sports news up next.